Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Haven Hubcast. I'm your host, Nancy Sheed, and I am thrilled to be here with Jenn T. Grace. Jenn, thanks for being here. I'm excited to catch up with you. For those of you who might not have heard of Jenn, she is the founder of Publish Your Purpose, and that is an acclaimed hybrid publishing company. And we are going to dive into what hybrid publishing companies do. And Jenn's secret sauce is she works with authors to help them tell their story in very unique, personalized, and strategic ways. So I can't wait to dive into that. But Jenn, we go back because of the book world. When you were sitting in high school or college, did you say, when I grow up, I want to be a book publisher?
I did not, interestingly enough. Although I did want to be a Dear Abby. Like I was so inspired by Dear Abby that I was like, I need to have like an advice column. So it's not quite the same, but that was part of my inspiration.
I think this is even better because it's like full-fledged, Dear Abby. So take us back pre-publisher days, pre-book writing days, because you're also an author. And I want to tease that out because I think through your journey, that's how you evolved. But before all that, you kind of did the corporate America thing, right? Like you did like a lot of us and you got started in corporate America.
I did. And so I don't even know that I would call it corporate America, but I guess it still was. It was still a corporation. And the very abridged version of the story is that I was working for an insurance company and it was my first job out of college, even though I had retail management jobs prior to college. It was my first one out of college where I was like, wow, I get to actually sit at a desk. Like,
fancy.
Like I was so excited. Like that was like my primary I'm like, yes. And I was a marketing manager, which was, my degree, my undergrad is in communications, my graduate's in integrated marketing and communications. And so I was excited because I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. And very quickly I hit a bump in the road where I encountered homophobic employees, like fellow coworkers who were incredibly homophobic. And it happened like within literally a month of me getting this job. And I was 23. And I hadn't been in the closet before at work. So I was confused. I was like, what? Like now I have to like not be who I am. And so it turned into this whole, honestly, one of the best experiences of my life when I really think back on it, because it forced me to have to do things differently and think about things differently. And so what I ended up doing as a result of that is I started a consulting company to help other companies market to the LGBTQ community in a very intentional and sincere and authentic type of way. So that's all aside. I started the consulting work in 2006, overlapping while I was still working for this really crappy employer. And because of that, I ended up writing not 1, 2, or 3, but 4 books on LGBTQ marketing and communication specifically. And through that process, other people around me were like, how did you know how to hire a cover designer? How did you know how to hire an editor? Like, how did you know what the editing process was? I'm like, I don't know. I figured it out. Like, I did what I could to figure it out. And so that's kind of how that past consulting work blended into what I do now, is because I was writing books specifically to fulfill the needs of the corporate clients that I had. Because I had a lot of Fortune clients that were in financial services and insurance. And they were all like, well, when's your book coming out? Or when asking, I'm like, wasn't planning on writing one. But back to the Dear Abby thing, I was like, well, because I had this one friend in particular who's a nurse practitioner. And she would ask me the most random questions about how to care for her LGBTQ patients. And I was like, okay, if she has the bravery to ask me, then there's something to be said about her vulnerability in knowing that like we're BFFs and she can ask me anything. And so I started to take the questions she was asking me and blogging about it. So I framed it in a very advice column type of way of like, dear, I didn't even call it Dear Jenn, but it was like, this is what's happening. This is what I'm trying to do. And then I would just respond to it. And that was actually the foundation of what my first book was. It was kind of like a combination of all those previous blogs that I was answering from. Wow. I was calling them questions from a friend. I believe that was what the
I just love that you're like, okay, now it needs to be a book.
Crazy.
I don't know. I'll figure it out. Right. So did you, for people not well versed in publishing, we're going to dive into this. There used to be like only one way to publish a book. At that time, did you not care? Did you pursue basically what we used to call the traditional route? Or did you say, I don't care, there's this thing called Amazon and Kindle, and I'm going to figure it out. I want to be in total control.
I didn't even think to go the traditional route. It never even crossed my mind. And this was back in 2011 and 2012. Wow. So publishing has changed so much since then. And at the time, it really was Amazon. It was called Create Space. And a friend of mine, I was kind of helping her with her marketing, just kind of casually. And she's a business coach. And she was telling me about using Create Space as I was helping her figure out her marketing. And so collectively, like I was helping her on that side, and she didn't teach me Create Space, but it was basically like, hey, go here, here, and here, and just explore this as an option. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Was it clunky and cumbersome? Yeah. Did I screw everything up? Of course I did. But it's that trial and error that you learn over time. But I just had that kind of attitude going into it of like, I'll just figure it out. Like, that's just kind of who I am in general. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll figure it out, or I'll hire the right people to help me figure it out.
Right. And as we know, in publishing 10 years later, it is completely different. But I think the other thing, you've ended up in business for a myriad of reasons, is it's not a matter of go to this link and upload your PDF or upload your manuscript, right? There's so many steps. And I don't think until you and I met did I realize when you're doing it on your own, all the steps and things you have to go through and worry about, from ISBN to how many different editors you can have and everything else. So can you kind of keep going along your journey, right? So you wrote your book, you knew it was involved. From what I understand, people come back to you and like, all right, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? At what point did you go, this is a business?
What was interesting is that it was a bombardment of how did you do this? How did you do that? And I would always put the caveat of, I did it like this, but soon realized that I screwed this up and actually had to tweak it and do it this way instead. So I honestly, every mistake I think you could possibly make, I made in my first two books. The first one was really, I screwed everything, including the cover, tragically bad. Then the second time around, I was like, okay, I know a little bit more. By the third time around, I'm like, I think I've got this. I think I finally figured out how to do this right without having to spend extra money, because I'm redoing things that I shouldn't have to redo. And I was in a mastermind group that was based in Westport. And I one day just kind of like threw the idea out there to say, like, I have a lot of people who are just asking me how I did all of these things. Like, what do you think if I were to just put people in a group and try to teach them how to do it? And it was a very like unanimous feedback of like, you should totally try it out. And so I basically grabbed 7 people. A number of people are mutual friends of both of ours. And I said, listen, I don't necessarily know what or how I'm going to do this. However, I know that you in particular are really interested in figuring out how to actually publish your book. I'm going to put a program together. Say yes. If you don't get what you're looking for, I'll happily give you your money back. But I am going to make it up as I go. So I did not even try to pretend like I had it all figured out, because I didn't at the time. And that was in February of 2015 is the first time I ran that program. And it is now, at least at the time of this recording, April of 2023. And I still run that program, but it has taken morphs and shifts so many times since. I had 2 people in one of the programs. I think it was the second time I ran it. And James Nowlin, who was the first book that we published on April 25th of 2017, said to me, he's like, Jen, I really think you have a bigger business here. I know that you just spent 3 months teaching me how to do this, but I would just pay you to do it for me. And it was him saying that I was like, oh, okay. I think there might be something here. But at the same time, I had this hesitancy because I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. I wanted to create like this scalable online program where I could, have more freedom. And instead, I now have a publishing company as a result. It took me like over the course of a weekend where I was like, all right, let me think about it. And then it just kind of like was that moment where I'm like, wow, I could be behind the scenes and be the engine that's pushing really awesome people into the world, rather than me standing on a stage talking about the same thing over and over again. I was so fatigued at that point from my consulting work, because there's so much advocacy that goes into the LGBTQ consulting work that I was just exhausted from saying the same thing over and over again with having minimal results to show for it. So it felt like a perfect kind of evolution to be like, all right, I'm going to put that part of my life aside, and now I'm just going to focus on helping other people do it instead.
I love that. I was like, it was almost the perfect storm. But in addition to that, you were very careful and thoughtful about, you don't publish books for just anybody, right? Like, you kind of almost have a matchmaking process and being very clear on on who you can help. Can you talk a little bit about how you got that clarity and maybe how that also, I want to say, I would assume ties into how you named your publishing company?
Yeah. So it's interesting because for me, my previous purpose was to really help the LGBTQ community from a business standpoint. I wasn't doing a lot of the community facing work. It was very much from an economic and a business standpoint. And that's why I was working with a lot of financial services and insurance companies. And for me, that was my purpose. And it's still, there'll always be a little piece of me that is like an advocate at heart. Like that will never change. But when I started to look at people in my network, people that I knew, it was such a cool way to bring in other people that I had been meeting over the years that I now had something that I could help them with. My consulting was so narrow. It was LGBTQ in financial services and insurance around marketing and communications. Like it could not get any more narrow than that. And so it like alienated a lot of people. And I'm like, oh my God, this person's like so awesome. But there was nothing we could do to really collaborate because it was so narrow. And so I started to think about, what does it mean for someone to have like a shared purpose? Like what is that kind of blend of what my skill set is and what someone's really passionate about? And we really have a focus that still is today. So it's nice that part of our vision has really remained true. Is we do a lot of business books, a lot of self-help, and a lot of books that are diversity, equity, and inclusion based. And what's beautiful is that I'm not here to define someone's purpose. I will help them figure out their purpose if that's something that they're struggling with, which in oftentimes that is the case. Like there's a seed, but it's not well developed. And so what's beautiful is that I can help anybody as long as their purpose is really clear. And the people that I work best with are people who are just motivated to get their message out there. And a book is one leg to that stool, where there's a lot of publishers who will do romance or any type of fiction books or cookbooks or books that are really important and serve a huge function in society. But that's not my people, because I want to be working with someone who is going to stand on a stage and speak to 5,000 people, and they're going to transform them with their idea. And their book is just one piece of that larger puzzle. And so that's kind of my vetting mechanism when I talk to people, because I definitely say no more than I say yes to folks. But even in those no's, it's, hey, this just isn't a fit for us. But here is another publisher. Here's a couple of other publishers that will be a good fit for you. Let me make an introduction. So that way I don't have to worry about them getting scammed in this industry, of which there's a lot of that happens too.
Yeah, that's a great segue. As we alluded to earlier, is how dramatic and drastic the publishing industry has changed from there's this, what did you call it? Create space before you just randomly loaded it up, or I have to have an agent who has to get me a deal and it takes 2 years, right? Like, so there's amazing spectrum that keeps growing exponentially in the ways that people can get their books published. Can you talk a little bit about so you find a good fit, they're clear on their message. What does that journey, I mean, I know you've got your actual program where there's some DIY or they learn how to do it themselves, but if you're helping them do that, what does that look like in terms of, and I ask this probably as a publishing 101 for people who don't understand that you just don't go from here's my manuscript to hit print. There's so many pieces in between.
Yeah. And I'll give the abridged version just because it could take me like a half an hour to just explain the steps involved.
There are infographics to explain all the steps in this journey, right?
Yep. That is true. We have a lot of information on our website too, because we really focus on education, because there is a giant gap of just lack of information in this industry.
And it changes.
And every day, there's always something new. Amazon decides that they're going to do something different, and it impacts everybody. Like, it is a ripple effect that everybody gets impacted by. But I do think that there's this misconception that you just kind of take your manuscript as you have it in your Word document, you run a spell check, and then you go upload it somewhere, and then poof, you have a book. You can tell when someone did that if you look at a lot of self-published books. And I am a huge fan of self-publishing, but people really just need to make sure that they are following best practices that have been set by the traditional side of the publishing industry. There's a lot of best practices, and our project plans have over 200 steps in them. So if someone thinks that it's just designing a cover, having it proofread and uploading it. That is a very far cry from the reality of what it really takes. And so it's very much like our approach anyway is rooted in strategy. Every single decision, there is some strategic component to. From, maybe ISBN numbers are probably the only thing that there's nothing strategic about.
Just
Everything
get it.
else,
Make sure you get it.
yeah, that's probably like the easiest part of this. But thinking about like the title and subtitle of your book, making sure that it's really clear what the promise to the reader is, being really clear on the graphics of your book, making sure that you're not doing something that's outdated, making sure it matches your branding, even the inside of the book, making sure it reflects the outside, it reflects who you are, your personality, you name it. There are just so many pieces and parts. And I think what happens for folks who've acknowledged that they don't want to go a traditional route, because the traditional publishing route isn't for everybody. And with the mergers and acquisitions that continue to happen in the traditional space, the opportunities are shrinking by the day for authors to have any type of chance in getting their book out there. And the savvy business person, I have noticed, realizes, why am I going to give up my ownership, my control, and my money when I could just hire an experienced team to do it for me? And so I think that that's where hybrid publishing really is the best of both worlds. And hybrid publishers come in all shapes and sizes. So we have the way that we do it, but I have a group that I meet with every month that are also hybrid publishers. And we all have very different business models, even though we all have the same kind of goal. And we're still swimming in that middle space between self-publishing on one extreme and traditional publishing on the other.
I appreciate you kind of explaining where you land in that huge spectrum that keeps evolving and changing every day. Jenn, related to that, what are some of the things you have seen just recently in terms of what's changing? And I think might be a completely different question, or they might be the same. And if somebody's thinking about publishing their book, do you have kind of like, here's the 3 questions they need to ask themselves before they know kind of what to do next? Because I'm sure, you alluded to the overwhelm of what do I, blah, 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 blah. Are there kind of, I don't mean to simplify it because I've seen your 200-point project plan. But, and you mentioned strategy. So, kind of what are the things you sort of send to your author to sort of reflect on when you're about to embark on this path?
I think, as no surprise, since my company is called Publish Your Purpose, I think making sure that the purpose is what everything is centered around, because there are so many points in this process where it is very easy to give up. It is very easy to hit a wall in the writing process and say, you know what, this isn't worth it. Or it's easy to kind of start the cover process and not have any clear type of vision whatsoever of what you want, and getting covers back that don't reflect what you're looking for because you didn't have a clear vision to start with. So what I tell people a lot is that if you can really just anchor into why you're doing this, like go back to Simon Sinek, right? Like why? Always start with why. It is one of the most powerful things that we can do, because if you can really just drill that down, that why deeper and deeper and deeper, when you have that moment where you tell a group of, a community group that you're part of, that you're doing this book, and everyone starts peppering you questions and ideas, and you get completely overwhelmed and want to shut down. If you remember why you're doing this and who you're writing this for, and whose lives you're trying to impact, it really changes the conversation. Because now it's not about you as the author, it's about your reader. And so you can have those moments of like, I don't know why I decided to start this book, because we all get to that place. We all get to that point of fatigue. And I'm about to release my 7th book in the fall.
I was about to say, I wanted to make sure we got a plug in there for, there's a story here. How many, what are you up to? So 7?
Yeah. This is number 7. Yeah. It's, and this one I'm so excited about because it's directly related to this conversation.
Oh,
because it's called Publish Your Purpose, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea. And it's literally everything I could possibly package in a very structured way of writing to publishing, and then the marketing side of like what to actually do with your book. And so it's focused on why, though. Like the whole beginning starts with purpose and why, because it's really where you have to start. So I think if someone's thinking about writing a book, you really just have to know, is this a priority? And are you really going to make the time to do it and do it well? Because you only have that first chance to make a first impression, a good first impression. It hurts my heart when I see people who've self-published their books very poorly, and then they're wondering of like, well, why isn't anyone reading it, or why isn't anyone talking about it? It's like, there are blatant problems straight out of the gate that could have completely been avoided if you just talked to other people and shared what you were up to.
Valuable advice. I love the tie into the new book. So thank you. And of course, I want to just honor that you and I knew each other before Haven, but I'm very happy that Haven keeps us together and in community in addition to the publishing. And so can you talk a little bit about the Haven community? We didn't even talk about your B Corp status. So I do want to give you a plug for that as well, which is no small feat. And I think that's one of the ties to Haven as well. So a little bit about Haven in terms of the community. And I know you've given back to that community too.
Yeah, well, number one, I love Felicia. I feel like everyone loves Felicia. I can't find anyone that wouldn't agree with that. And what's interesting, and I will absolutely bring up the B Corp status because Haven is a certified B Corp, publisher purpose certified B Corp. And what's beautiful is that just the amount of programming, I think that's what amazes me the most about Haven is just the amount of programming and the reach of said programming. So I am a big fan of all of the programming around sustainability. And that's no surprise given the B Corp status. And what's great now is that I am one of the founders of the B Local Connecticut, which is the local affiliate, if you will, of B Lab, which is kind of the governing body for this certification. And Felicia is on the board with me. And so I get the joy of collaborating with her and seeing just how skilled she is at putting on events. So she is our events chair. And the events that we've run so far would not be able to be accomplished if it weren't for her real clear vision and leadership in what she does. And I see that reflected in everything that Haven does. Just branding and you walk in the building, just how beautiful everything looks. Everything is so intentional. And I love that because I feel like in so many cases you see these co-working spaces and they're just, it's just a place to come plug in a laptop, but where Haven's a community. And I feel like that's really what makes it special.
And I loved I'm just getting an image of several Venn diagrams that there's the sustainability, there's the B Corp, there's community, there's publishing, there's telling your story, there's people. And that to me is also what comes up. It is very much an overlapping, interconnected group with many different kind of tentacles is the wrong word. But to me, it's where all the magic happens, right? Where all those connections kind of magically happen and electrodes keep sparking. So thank you, Jenn. I appreciate that kind of, I think, slightly different view of Haven from the B Corp. We don't always talk about that. And I think it's hugely admirable. And I know you all are doing great work for Connecticut and beyond. I'm going to close out and say, in addition to a book coming out, how can people find you or connect with you and learn more? Because you alluded to lots of educational information on your website too. So how can people connect and find more?
The best place is to go to our website, which is publishyourpurpose.com. And I say that because if there's any information that you're looking for around kind of what publishing looks like, what the process is, we have a really robust blog that we contribute to every month that is just very action oriented in terms of what you can do, how to think about it. We have a lot of just free downloads of what does it cost to publish a book, or what questions should you ask a potential publisher that you're thinking about working with. And so I strive to be an advocate for authors in this industry because I feel like there's not enough people advocating for them. So I feel like our website is a good central location for a lot of that information.
I'm writing down it. Advocate for authors. Make sure we highlight that. So your website, and then if people want to find you in the socials or connect directly with you, they can figure out there from your website.
Yeah, I'm Jenn T. Grace on all the socials. So just 2 N's.
Well, thank you, Jenn T. Grace, for being with us today and sharing your wisdom and your outlook, and again, your advocacy for the work that you do. And Haven is lucky to have you as a community member.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
That is it for another episode of the Haven Hubcast. If you like what you hear, please give us a review and or share this podcast with friends. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.